Well, and I wanted to take the show on the lawn today. We shall see if that is possible. My internet is strong enough. My will is certainly strong enough. Get myself all situated here. New viewers. It's up there. Oops. Move you over. Wait for a few more people to come. Well, 4 of you already. Wow, it's like people are waiting. Look how gorgeous it is out here. It's so nice. Live from my ghetto land backyard. So if you don't recognize it, I live in the West Ward in Easton. And this is my little piece of paradise out here with my hammock and my garage with my fountain and fire pit back there. And I'm currently, can't really see it, but I'm sitting at my patio with my umbrella and my lights are on because I think it'll probably get dark before the show is over, but I have all the lights set up so I can stay out here with all of you because it is way too beautiful to be inside today. So I decided to take the party on the lawn. So since there's already 4 people on and it's 8:03, I'll get started. Welcome to Pardon My Positivity. This is a show that airs once every 2 weeks where we focus on having a positive attitude and choosing happiness in your life. I'm your host, Paula Lynch. I am an accountant and business owner by day and a bartender by night, but I'm a happy chick all the time, not because life is easy, but because I choose to be happy. So I started this show so I can help other people choose to be happy as well. So on the show, we give people tips and ideas on how they can make happiness a regular part of their life. Today, I don't have a guest. I'm doing a solo show today, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But I decided to do the show on cultivating control because my experiences in the last week or so very much evolved around control in my life and how I was kind of tripping over my own advice. And so I thought I would do some extra research and focus on how I can do better at that and share with you guys so that you can do better with that too. All right, so the big topic, well, there's a couple big topics in my life lately. I've been working very hard to get my 3 companies running now that I'm no longer part of corporate America. And happy to say that Pardon My Positivity is coming along nicely. Obviously, here we are with our podcast, and our merchandise is coming out very soon for people to order. And our podcast, our website is well on the way. So we're looking very good there. My PGL Business Solutions is also looking very good. So I'm very happy about those, but those have been consuming a lot of my time. For those of you who follow my page, you know that I was not available earlier this week because I had a minor surgery revision. And so that tripped up a little bit of my life as well, because I had to take downtime. Like, you can't just have a surgery, any type of surgery, and then just get up that day and go to work and go at it full force, or else you'll just cause yourself more downtime. So I had to practice better control in that situation too. I also had some other situations that were outside of my control. One of them, and I complained about it quite a bit, was my kitchen floor. I needed some tiles replaced, and that turned into replacing the entire floor, and it was just a disaster. It's still a disaster. It still plagues me. So that was occupying a lot of my time, and something I couldn't control And then I happened to be with somebody that I love, and they were talking to me about their life and some problems they were having. And all of their problems were because they were trying to control someone else as well. So as I was thinking about it, like me having to control my businesses, my having to control myself with the surgery, my having to give up control when it came up to the situation with my kitchen, and this loved one having to give up trying to control other people. And I really was like, this is the universe telling me I have to do an episode about cultivating control in your life. As a mom, as a big sister, as a grandmother, it's easier if everything just goes exactly the way that I plan it. My life is so much easier if everybody just does what I say, but that's not the way life works. So in life, we have to recognize that there's certain things that we can't control, and we have to take the things we can control and format them and concentrate on certain things so that we're not overwhelmed with the things that we have to take care of. So I thought it would be a good week to focus on that, especially because if I didn't feel up to it, if for some reason my surgery had been more complicated and I was still sick today, it was an okay week for me to say, hey, self-care, I'm not going to do the show this week. I'm going to push it off a week. So I set it up as a solo show that could go for any week. So I'm going to get right into it. Remember, this airs all over. It airs on Facebook in 2 places. And then it also airs on YouTube. And but I'm following on my personal page. So if you want to comment, please go to the Paula Lynch page and put your comment there, just like Robin did. I see you, Robin. Thank you so much for being here. Robin remembered that the show was on tonight at 8:00. And Marcus asked, what is she saying? I assume he asked about Robin, and Robin is just letting me know that she remembered to tune in. So thank you. If you put your comments there, I will try to get to them the entire time. This is the way it works here. We encourage audience participation. So if you hear something that rings true with you, please let me know. If you want, some more information on a topic, chime in and I'll give you as much as I have. And if you have tips too on how you deal with things that you can't control or things you can control, put them in the comments and then everybody can read them and we can help each other, because this is what this is all about. Okay, so I was feeling really overwhelmed with all of the stuff that I cannot control last week. And I was kind of, hi, Betsy and Helen. I was really distracted by the things that I cannot control, right? Like the kitchen. I couldn't control the kitchen, and that was a big thing. There was other things in my life, like I can't control who lives in my neighborhood, and I can't control the price of gas, and I can't control that the state of Pennsylvania doesn't answer their phone for 80 minutes and then accidentally hangs up on you. Like I can't control those things, right? But there was a lot of stuff I could control, but I was so consumed with the things I couldn't control that I was actually neglecting the things I could control. So it took lunch with a friend who sat down and was like, okay, you need to get back on course with the things you can do. To sit me down and say, write them down and write them out and put them on a calendar. And I was like, you're right, I've got to refocus, right? The other thing is I was letting other people have too much control over things that I do have control of because I was focused on the things I couldn't. So I had to take back some of that control too. So let's talk about the things we can't control. And this is funny because, certain things I know automatically. I don't even have to look at anything. I can't control how other people feel. I can't control, like I said, the price of eggs, the price of gas. I can't control the weather. I know these things. So, but I'm researching and studying and trying to learn some more about control. And there are literally lists of hundreds of things you can't control. This is just some of the craziness of, you can't control the traffic, you can't control war, you can't control famine. I can't control who's in my family. I can't control the future. You can't control the past. You can't control cats. You can't control getting diseases. You can't control what someone will think about me. I can't control the international economy, God's will, natural disasters, the reality of death, being created, balding, getting old. There's so much stuff you can't control. I was going to do a whole little section on recognizing the things you can't control, but there's just way too many things to list. There's thousands of things, probably millions of things that you cannot control. And so it's really wasted breath for me to sit here and list off everything you can't control. So better to say, how do you recognize if it's something you can't control? Right? So you simply ask yourself, you have to, when things upset you, you have to evaluate them and decide, is this something that my actions can possibly affect? And when we first get upset, we don't realize that. So sometimes we have to take some time and think about a situation, think about what's actually happening so that we can evaluate if we can control any of it at all. Right? So some things are pretty obvious. They upset us, but if we just calm down for a minute, then we realize, like the price of gas. You going in and yelling at the guy at the counter is not going to reduce the price of gas. You cannot at this moment change the cost of your tank of gas. Can you take steps that eventually will reduce the price of gas? Yeah, you can be part of the solution and not part of a problem. You can take little steps, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But right now, the fact that you're going to pay $72 for your gas tank on your SUV is not something you're going to change once you're at the gas tank and see that it's $72. So you have to recognize that is something you cannot change. So you have to let it go into the universe. I could not change that my floor is, the subfloor needs to be replaced. I can't control that. I can't make it a better subfloor. I can't replace the subfloor. I have to just accept that the subfloor needs to be replaced. Okay, so in order to recognize the things that you can't control, because since we're not going to list a million of them, we're going to talk about the things you can control, because that's a much shorter list. Lucky us, it's a much shorter list. And it makes it much easier to recognize the things you can't control. So the things you can control. And this will be the wonderful Paula-ish part of the program. The first thing you can control, and here's our wonderful bullet points that we love to do, our numbered list, is your thoughts. Now, I'm big for saying you can't control how you feel. All you can do is control what you do with your feelings. So you can't control your emotions, but you can, in a way, control your thoughts. And that is by changing your attitude, changing to a positive attitude. And I know when you first start the journey, you're going to be like, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how anybody does that. I can't possibly change my attitude to just be positive. It can't be that simple. And it is like learning any other skill. You can change your attitude to be a more positive one. And at first, you will struggle and it'll be a learning process, but eventually you'll find that you're automatically choosing a more positive path. So you can control your thoughts. So eventually it becomes easier to say, whoosh, well, this thing is out of my control. So let me focus on the ways I can improve my life that are within my control. Okay. Another thing you can control is your personal productivity, right? This is largely controlled by your self-care. You're able to do 2 things in a day or 20 things in a day based on how you take care of yourself the rest of the time. So there's other episodes, and there's tips all over the Part of My Positivity page that give you ideas on self-care and how you can keep your body in optimal shape and make sure you're getting things like socializing and being part of the community. But the better you treat yourself, the more productive you are. So, and these are things like, sometimes I feel like when I say things, you'll hear them, people hear them and they're like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. If I'm treating my body better, then I'm going to get more done. But the hard part is putting these things into practice. We all know we should treat our bodies better, but we still stay up too late and don't get enough sleep and eat garbage and all of these things that are not treating our bodies well. The hard part is deciding that that's what you want to do, that you want to exercise, better self-care, so that you can have a more productive life. And I'm just pointing out that I knew it was going to get dark, so I'm glad I turned all these lights on. They look really cool. Still glad I'm outside. All right, so another thing you can control is your self-esteem. Now, on this list, this is probably the hardest one. It's the hardest one for me too. If you're watching a show about choosing positivity in your life and having more happiness in your life, then you probably have some self-esteem issues, like me. Like, the whole reason I started the show is because my self-esteem, my self-worth was so low that I didn't want to get up in the morning. I didn't want to be around anymore, So the whole reason I started the page was because I decided I don't want to be sad anymore. I want to be happy. So I'm gonna figure out how to do that. And something I learned way back when I was in school was that, you learn so much by seeing someone do something. You learn even more when you do it yourself, but you retain like everything if you teach somebody else how to do it. So it was natural progression once I started hearing things and doing things that I would want to share the things, not only to help other people, but because that helps me to learn the lessons better myself. So you can control your self-esteem, and we all need help with that. So just reminders when it's things like getting therapy or joining counseling groups or joining pages or groups even on social media where you have common interests or common concerns. These are perfectly acceptable ways to learn how to love yourself. I was just having a conversation not an hour ago about how people are so very willing to, they want to learn how to fix their car. They'll go on the internet and spend hours on fixing their car. If they want to learn how to get rid of fleas on their cat, they'll go on the internet and learn how to get rid of fleas on their cat. But if they want to learn how to love themselves or how to have a better relationship, they refuse to research that and learn how to do it. For some reason, we all think we should just naturally know how to do all of these emotional and mental things. And that is so silly that that's what we do. You should, if you have a problem listening, and you have a problem listening, and you want to correct that problem of listening, then you go on the internet and you research, how can I be a better listener? And if you have a problem with self-esteem, then you do research on how you can better love yourself. All right, what else can you control? You can control your work ethic. Oof, that's a hot button. And I'm pretty sure I'll probably get a whole bunch of pop-ups on here of people, because from boomers to millennials, where everybody disagrees on what good work ethic is. But simply put, and for the for the sake of this show, for the meaning of this show, what we're talking about is you get from work, you get from life what you put into it. So if you only put in 20%, you will only get 20%. If you put in 100% all the time, then you're most likely to get 100%. And work ethic, the term work ethic isn't just for your job. The term work ethic is for your life, because everything you do, you're working for a better life. You're working for a better you. So the word work is not for your career, it's not for your job. Work ethic is how you approach all things in life. So if you give more, you will get more. You can also control your schedule. So you control your schedule, and routine is a big deal because you can control your schedule. So you want to make sure you schedule things like self-care, exercise, socializing, spending time with your family and your community. You have control over your schedule. Now, you might not have as much control over your schedule as you think you should have. Maybe you work second shift and you have 5 kids, and so you don't have as much free time as you wish you had, but you do have control of the hours you have available. So you can control that part of your life, of those open hours. You can control your meals for the most part. I know. Believe me, I know. I have 4 children, and when they were little, I only made $5,000 a year. So there was many, many nights when we lived on, Hamburger Helper and ramen noodles, and they didn't see a fresh fruit or vegetable for a really long time. Thank God for food pantries. Sometimes you can't control your meals that go into your body as much as you'd like to. But even when your control is limited, you have more control of that than you do other things. So, you can choose between having a decent portion of ramen noodles and having a small portion of carrots and celery. You can choose those for the same price. Admittedly, that's one of the items that are more restricted as far as what you can control for some of us. I'm hoping most of you don't have that kind of restrictions on your life. So, but making sure that you're getting, in the case of me and my kids, making sure that we were getting enough nutrients was an important thing. And so we had to choose the right meals to make sure that we were healthy, even if that meant getting help somewhere. Then you choose you control what food goes into your family by getting help. What else can you control? You can control how you treat others. And this is a big deal. This is a big thing you can control. And this is one of my most important things. And Betsy commented earlier when we were talking about the things in your life and how you can stumble around the things that you can't control and get lost in things. But as she says, sometimes she thinks to herself, what would Jesus do? Right. And so that I mentioned this because when we're talking about how you treat others, I'm always reminded of the golden rule. I'm not a particular religious person now as an adult, but I did attend Catholic school, so I have a lot of background in religion and stuff. And the golden rule is that you treat others as you want to be treated, right? So, and that's pretty much how I've lived my life. If you don't want people to lie to you, then don't lie to people. If you don't want people to say nasty things about you, then don't say nasty things about people. If you don't want people to scream and shout and treat you like garbage, then don't scream and shout and treat people like garbage. That's pretty much, the rule. It's the golden rule. So you can control if you do that. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to choose to be a good person. Sometimes you want to lose your patience and scream at people. Sometimes it's most definitely easier to do the wrong thing. It's I don't know how many times you're faced with an opportunity to short somebody or cheat somebody, and it's so easy to do. It would be so easy to not pay that bill. It would be so easy to walk out when the cashier forgot to charge you for a whole bag of groceries. It was so easy to do. Why not do it? It's right there in front of you. And but if you were the cashier and then got in trouble for not ringing up the stuff, would you like to have to happen to you? No, probably not. Right. So the golden rule is something you can control. What else you can control? Oof, one of my biggest ones. You can control how honest you are. Every day of your life, you can control how honest you are. And this is one I catch a lot of guff for, because people say you're too honest. And I say, that's not a thing. That's like having too much money or being too attractive. You can't be those things. You can't be too honest. If you feel that I'm too honest, you got to check where your meter's at, because there's no such thing as being too honest. There's a thing as too much information. Maybe I'm exposing too much information in a situation and you're not comfortable with that amount of information, but I can't be too honest. Right? So the benefits of being honest, if you don't already know, you have less stress. Main benefits, there's 1,000 benefits of it, but the two biggest benefits are you have less stress and you have better relationships if you're honest, because there's no confusion ever on anything if you're honest about things, and you never have to have the stress of, what did I tell her I did on Tuesday? Because you lied about what you did on Tuesday. So if you never lied, then you don't have a reason to be stressed about remembering what the lie was. When it comes to building relationships, when we're young, we automatically trust everyone. And then people start disappointing us, right? And breaking that trust. And we begin to stop trusting everyone. And then by the time we get older, most of us, not all of us, most of us get to a point where we don't trust anyone, and then they have to earn trust from us. So your honesty is crucial across all the ages, because either someone automatically trusts you and you don't want to destroy that trust, or someone doesn't trust anyone and you need to earn that trust. So honesty plays a big part. Hello, Toys R Us. Nice to see you. I hope you're having fun. So you can control your honesty. Every time you lie, that's an absolute choice. So, and I know there's little white lies. There's lies that we feel like are helpful lies, not telling your best friend she looks hideous in that dress kind of thing. But in the end, it's honesty is the best policy. Who would have thought? What else can you control? You can control your perspective. What does that mean? Control your perspective. And while I'm super thankful I have the light, I am loving how the solar lights give this funky look behind me now. If you didn't get to see the progression from light to dark, I hope you rewind the video, because I can't wait to watch it so I can see how it changed over the last half an hour. Anyway, you can change your perspective. All right, this is another one that, like in the beginning, when we talked about changing your thoughts and having a positive attitude, your perspective is something that you have to work at changing, right? If you're always surrounded by drama and you make everything drama, 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 then your entire life is going to be drama. So if all you ever watch on TV is dramatic shows and all you ever read is dramatic books and all you ever worry about or engage in is, I don't know, real wives and everybody's screaming and fighting and having drama all the time, then your perspective is gonna be dramatic. And everything you do is going to be like chaotic, because you come into every situation with the attitude, with the assumption that this is going to be crazy. And it doesn't have to be crazy. If you have a calmer perspective, if you have a happier perspective, if you have a more positive perspective, then you come into situations believing that the situation is going to be peaceful and happy and a good experience. So you do control your perspective. So try to change that up too. And then the last thing that you can change, whoosh, I feel like that was a long list, but it wasn't that long, I guess. The last thing you change, you control, is your space, right? So we all, even if you live somewhere else, you live in someone's house's house, we all have personal space. My personal space happens to be almost an entire house. I'm freaking lucky. I have almost an entire house that I get to make look exactly the way that I want it to look and reflect my personality. Maybe the only space you have is a locker at school, or your cubicle at work, or your bedroom, or something like that. Whatever your space is, you get to control what's in there. So fill it with things that help you to have a positive attitude and a better outlook on life, right? You can fill it with things that stress you out and make you miserable, but then don't expect to have a happy, productive life if you're filling it with things that stress you out and make you miserable. So that's the point in all of these things. I realize as I get to the end of the list is that I'm recommending immediately fill your space with happy things and schedule self-care and work on your work ethic, because the effort you put in is the effort you get out. And really, you don't have to do any of those things. You control all of these items. So if you would like to be a less productive person, if you would like to be a less thoughtful person with relationships that aren't as healthy, if you'd like to be a super dramatic person, do those things. The point is, those are the list of things you can control. So if you can think of other things along those lines that you control, please add them to the comments, because I would love to add them to the list after looking over a bunch of stuff. And it seems like these are the things that absolutely I agree. We can control these things. I can control this list of things: my thoughts, my self-esteem, my work ethic, my space. I can control these things. Okay, so that means anything that lies outside of that list, I can't control. So that's hard, right? And the hardest ones this past week, most of my ones were tripping me up, were work related, or they were home related, like physical stuff in my home related. But the ones that are always the hardest to deal with, the ones that are always hardest to accept, are the things we cannot change that involve other people, right? You absolutely cannot control how another person feels about you. This is something that took me decades to learn. Doesn't matter how good you are to a person. It doesn't matter how much you try and how much you do. You will never control how they feel about you. You'll never control what they say. You'll never control what they do. You know, if If for some reason you're able to do that, stop. What you're doing, if someone doesn't love you and you're able to control them in such a way that they're doing loving things or saying the right things to you, you're manipulating a situation. You're manipulating a situation, or they're manipulating a situation. There is no way that you can control what your husband does. There's no way you can control what your children do. There's no way you can control what your boss does or your coworker does. You can have an influence. You can express your opinion. You can ask them to do things, but you cannot control what other people do and how other people feel. And this is the core hardest thing for us to accept, because we never understand why people don't think and feel the same as we do. And we are so obsessed with ourselves, and it sounds silly because most people would say, I don't really love myself, or I could improve upon myself. I have low self-esteem. I hate myself. Most people say that, but we are so in tune with our own feelings. We refuse to see other people's feelings, and we refuse to recognize them as valuable in comparison to our own feelings. This is a self-preservation thing. It's how we protect ourselves. It's how we interpret miscommunication. There's dozens of reasons why we do this. We learn these things as a child, but the truth of the matter is, you can't control how other people feel. You can't control what they do with those feelings, and you can't control what they think, say, any of those things. So what is it you can do? This is where you get to learn how you can actually do something with the information. Yay! All right, so what can you do? The things you can control. How can you use the things you can control to cope with the things that you cannot control? There we go. Sorry. Now that it's dark, I have a little light, and I forgot to take into consideration, and now I will learn. So next time I'll have two lights, because one of them will drive buggies away, because that's what's happening right now. Live and learn. So, what can you do? Okay, what can you do to help you deal with the things you can't control? First, you have to figure out what it is you can't control. So we went through all that already. There's a list of whatever 12 things that you can control, and anything outside of that is stuff you can't control. So, but get into the habit of, when something stresses you out, when something's causing you a problem, to take a minute. Whenever something is stressing you out, you should never react immediately anyway. What do they say? Never make promises when you're happy and threats when you're angry, or something like that. It's something along those lines. So when you're experiencing negative emotions, you should really try not to react immediately, because they're so charged that we ruin a great many relationships simply reacting to our negative emotions immediately instead of thinking about it. So but we need to get in the habit of, when things are stressing us out, to actually stop, think about the thing that's stressing us out, and evaluate if it's something that we can actually control. Right? Once you've determined that it's something that you cannot control, if you determine that it's something you can control, then of course, make a plan on how you can adjust to change the situation. If it's something you cannot control, then use some of these other steps to try to help you deal with the fact that you cannot control it. In previous shows, I've said, like if you have choices, accept it or change it. Those are your two options, accept it or change it. And when it's something you have to accept, that doesn't mean you have to let it continue to be part of your life. You can choose to remove that thing from your life. So, but in the cases where it's not something you can remove, it's something that you don't want to remove just yet, then these are ways to deal with the things you cannot control. And a lot of things are things you can't remove, like, the control the government has on pricing your gas. So the second thing you can do to help you deal with the things that are outside of your control is to identify your fears. Great many of the things that stress us out so badly are because of our underlying fears in life, right? So this is a great one for me because of everything that happened earlier this year, right? As if some of you don't know, about a month and a half ago, the company that I worked for 15 years closed down. And we got news that it would probably close in January, and we did a lot of stuff to not close. And when it became evident that there was really no way of preventing the closure, I didn't freak out. I didn't, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to keep my house? How am I going to feed my family? Blah, 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 blah. I sat down and thought about the things that I could change and the different paths I could take. And I was able to handle the whole thing pretty calmly, right? And because in my head, I thought about what was the worst case scenario for me in this particular situation. And for me in that particular situation, I know I have very good business skills, so I could definitely get another job. I know that I could run my household on half of what I was making. And I knew that I was living kind of frivolously in some ways, and I could go back if I needed to being a coupon shopper and eating ramen noodles, because I knew I could do those things. But more importantly, I knew that even if I never found another job and had to sell my house, I had a family that would never let me and Rebecca live in a box on the street. So my worst case scenario still wasn't death, right? And because I was able, and I said multiple times to people around me, and I'm so glad this happened now in 2023 and not 2020, because 2020 Paula would not have been able to sit down and look at the worst case scenario and say, worst case scenario, I'm not dead. So that's pretty freaking good, right? 2020 Paula would have been like, oh my God, what am I going to find another job? What am I going to do? How do I pay for things? I can't live with my dad. 2020 Paula had such a negative outlook on life that she couldn't get a realistic perspective on worst case scenario. So the things that scare you most motivate a lot of your control issues. Maybe the thing that you're worried about is being alone. So you try to control how your partner engages with you because you want to have the healthiest marriage that you can have because you're so terrified that she'll leave. Now, maybe you're terrified of being poor. Maybe you're terrified of the government having too much control. Maybe you're terrified of having an empty nest. Now, if you really look into your fears and think about the things that scare you the most, then you'll see they are motivating your controlling issues, most of your controlling issues. When my kids were young, I was insanely controlling over everything that they did. And I think this happens a lot in the households where you find all the other kids in the neighborhood want to go there. It seems like the cool house that everybody goes to. All the other kids were at my house too. But I, like there was snack times and there was certain snacks you could eat on certain days and a definitive time for dinner. And I was super controlling, like who could take them out, where they could take them, when they had to be back. Super controlling. And that was because I was terrified that something would happen to my kids or that I would do a bad job raising them. So that motivated a lot of my control. And the controlling issues I had early on in my marriage, I was terrified to fail again. I did not want to fail at another relationship. So I was trying to fit us into this little box that we were never going to fit into because I was so scared of failing at love another time. So anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent on that one, but because you need to identify your fears. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to search inside themselves and figure out, what's my sticky bits? But if you can face your sticky bits, you can solve most of your problems. So pause real quick before I get to number 3. Robin writes and she says, be proud of what you are and be proud of what you are and be what you are proud of. I like that. I think I'm gonna put that into my arsenal somewhere. Be proud of what you are and be what you're proud of. That's an excellent advice. I think it goes along with a lot of my stuff I said before, which is probably when she posted it and I missed it. Okay, 3 things you can do to deal with the things you cannot control. Concentrate on your influence. The things you can't control, you can't fix them, right? If your significant other doesn't participate in chores as much as you do, right? You can't make them participate in chores as much as you do. You can't control them and force them to do as many chores as you. You can engage in chores willingly and be an influence. You can express yourself and communicate well and be a good communicator and be an influence in that way and learn how to talk to each other, and then they'll learn how to speak to you, or you'll influence them to learn to speak to you and influence them to do chores more with a better attitude along those lines. You can't make him do things, so focus on your influence on things. But this is another area. Like I love when I'm doing these things and stuff pops up and I'm like, see, this is relevant to my life, because you don't realize how much of an influence you have every day. Every day, you have no clue the kind of impact you're having. And the truth of the matter is, the little words that I write every morning, on the day I don't write them, 50 people write to me and tell me that I need to write them. I need to write them because this gentleman every day gets up and reads it and it helps him get through his day. I need to write them because this woman wants to make sure that I'm happy because I make the rest of the world happy, and I never got up with the intention of doing that. But I'm so happy and proud that I am influencing other people every day to have a better day. And so if you're a positive influence or a negative influence, you're an influence no matter what. You are always, always leaving a mark on this planet. And so it's up to you to choose what kind of mark you leave. Number 4. And by the way, this list I actually got off of Forbes. I'm credit Forbes here because it's completely Forbes list. Number 4, you have to figure out the difference between ruminating and problem solving. So that means dwelling on an issue or actually trying to fix it. So you had lunch with your best friend and a conversation didn't go well, and you said some stuff you probably shouldn't have said, and now you two are in a fight. So You can't go back to yesterday and change the lunch and change the fight that you had, right? So you sitting here thinking about all day or talking to all your other friends about the situation, like, oh my God, la, 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 I'm so stupid, and dwelling over all the mistakes that you made during the conversation, or maybe, you've given up on the relationship. So now you're dwelling on all the mistakes you made in that relationship altogether. You're not having a positive impact on your life, and you're not dealing with the thing that you cannot control. If you focus on the problem solving in all of these situations, then it helps to control, not to control, but to deal with the issues you can't control. Right? So you can't control the past, right? So you're dwelling on the past and you're just stressing yourself out. But if you think about it differently, if you think about it from a problem solving perspective, then you can say, like, okay, when did I say those things? Why did I say those things? I said those things because I think she's being stupid. So why do I think she's being stupid? Why can't I accept who she is and that her opinion is different than mine? Maybe I could have approached it in this way. In the future, I will approach it in this way. And when I call her tomorrow and apologize, I'll tell her that I'm going to try to approach it in this way, because I recognize that she and I are not the same, and I love her even though we don't always see eye to eye. So focus on solving problems and not dwelling on the problem. Ruminating. Good vocabulary word. All right. Number 5, have a stress management plan. That'll help you deal with the things you can't control. Guaranteed. Even the things that got me last week and I didn't post, right? I have a pretty decent stress management plan on a regular basis. You need a regular stress management plan, but you also need emergency plans, right? You need emergency plans because sometimes, your things come up and it's just overwhelming. So you need extra. Okay. So last week when things got really rough one day, I was like, oh, I need extra. So I took some extra time. I went and got a massage. I had some of my favorite food. I went on one of my favorite shows. Try to, because I'm up here on this wavelength all the time, and all of a sudden this bad stuff happens and whoosh, I'm down here. I'm like, I need an emergency, jack me up, right? So I do stuff that promote my positivity all the time, so I can stay here. And then every once in a while, something spectacular happens, and I get to go all the way up here. But when I drop here, I need an emergency injection that takes me straight up, not a gradual back up. So I did that on Thursday, and unfortunately, I did my best to shoot myself back up, but it wasn't enough to get me back up here. And then on Friday, it happened. More stuff happened. It shot me right back down again, and I just had a really hard time with my stress management because too many things are piling on top of each other. I guarantee you had the same things happen to me a couple years ago before I had a regular stress management routine where I do things like ponder in the morning, reflect on my life, practice gratitude every single day, get a good night's sleep, take my vitamins. When I was treating my body like crap, instead of giving it the self-care that it needed, my happy level wasn't up here. It was down here. And so when something bad happened, I didn't drop to here, I dropped down to the floor. So you need to have a stress management plan, both on a regular basis and for emergency cases. Whatever that means to you. To me, it means probably getting a massage and spending some time with my grandkids. But for you, maybe it means petting 60 cats, which does not sound fun to me, and eating tacos, also not so fun for me. So anyway, then the 6th thing you can do to help you deal with the stuff that you cannot control is to develop healthy affirmations. Wonderful little tidbit. Every day you have about 70,000 thoughts that go through your brain. 70,000 thoughts. Pretty sure as an overthinker, my number's closer to 1,000,000, but that's a lot of thoughts. Even if you're a deadhead and you don't have hardly any thoughts going through your brain, 70,000 is the average person, right? You really need to make sure some of those thoughts are affirmation. So you need to make sure that you're telling yourself every once in a while, I got this. I can handle this. This is not a problem. You're amazing. You're gorgeous. You're beautiful. One of my favorite things, and I know I sound ridiculous when I say it, and when my daughter catches me saying it, she'll giggle. But when I'm doing something that's physically taxing on me, like putting in the air conditioners this year, it's always very hard for me to do that. I'm capable of doing it, but they're big and bulky and I'm not strong. And I'm putting the air conditioner in and it's trying to get the better of me. And what do I say every time? Oh, you don't win, I win. You don't get to win, I get to win. I always win. And that's an affirmation to myself and that I use all the time when things, especially physical things, are getting especially sticky, because I need a cheerleader. And nobody's going to be a better cheerleader for you than you, because nobody's in your head. Nobody knows when you need cheering. You know when you need cheering. So, when you're feeling like pulling your hair out and screaming, then you take a minute and you look in the mirror and you say, what is wrong with you? You got this. Why are you letting this get the better of you? You're amazing. Do you remember what you did last week? Do you remember how this thing fell apart and you're the one who picked up all the pieces and made everything work? Do you remember this thing and that thing? And you're smart, you're funny, you're beautiful, people love you, you're nice, whatever it is you need to hear, you need to tell yourself that information. We're all desperately looking for somebody to say these things to us, right? We're all looking for that perfect soulmate, and it would be a friend, be it romantic, whatever. We're all looking for that person that automatically knows what we need to hear. But truth is, you automatically know what you need to hear. Say it to yourself. Tell yourself, convince yourself that you're this amazing person, and that'll take you 2 steps closer to actually being the most amazing version of you that you can be. So, that wraps up the show. Special thanks to Forbes, because I totally took that last section off your site. And special thanks to all of you to tuning into the show. I'm loving, so the light's a little bright. Kind of probably look like a ghost in Facebook world. Oh no, it's not too bad. And my little lights out there are very sparkly and beautiful, and the bugs are awful. But next time I'm out here in 2 weeks, it probably gets dark a little later, so we'll have a little more time. And I think that I'll actually bring it out onto the lawn whenever I can, because this is one of the things on my self-care, is to spend more time outside, because I love it out here. Right? So I hope you got some good information tonight about the things you can control and the things you cannot control. I hope you're willing to accept the things that you cannot control. I love the serenity prayer. And I hope now that you got a couple of the ways to deal with the things that you can't control, those tips like managing your stress and loving yourself, that they help you to deal with the people, especially, that you can't control in your life. Right? The most important thing from all of it, the most important thing to take away is you can train your brain to think differently. We train our brains every day. If you couldn't train your brain to think differently, you would still be thinking like an infant. Hello? You would literally be thinking like a baby if you couldn't train your brain. So, train your brain to think differently than it currently does. Dig inside yourself, figure out the root of your problems in different instances. focus on making changes so you can be happier. And honestly, you'll find once you can change your attitude that other things just start falling into place. You become a better employee or business owner. You become a better partner because you're comfortable yourself and you love yourself and you can communicate better and you can accept things more. You become a better parent. You become better at life with the right attitude and with the right mindset. So before I sign off, I'm going to say, hi, Debbie. Debbie tuned in late and she says, oops, don't forget, you can watch it from the beginning on here or on the Pardon My Positivity page. You can also watch it on YouTube. I know they're hard to find the videos on Facebook, but on YouTube, on the Pardon My Positivity page, that's all there are these videos. So you find me over there, start following me over there. It's really easy to find them all and you can go back and look at old information. I keep them posted I try to keep the descriptions pretty clear as to what's covered in each one. So if you want to refer back to something that we did another time. I need a guest for 2 weeks from now. I had one, but we had to push her to June because she's practicing some self-care and changes in her family. So she asked if we could move her 2 weeks. So if you're interested in being on the show, give me a DM and we will work out what's a great topic to handle with you. Betsy says, Helen blew me a kiss, and I'm gonna blow him right back. Helen, don't tell me I stink. That's your mom. Your mom. That's your mom. And then Robin reminds me that neural pathways. So that's it's all about those neural pathways when we're retraining our brain. So have a great rest of your evening. If you didn't get out today, I hope you can get out tomorrow. I hope this beautiful weather stays with us a little bit longer before we get a lot more rain. Like I said, I'll be back in 2 weeks. So if you want to be on the show, give me a buzz. And until then, until next time, remember, always the key to your happiness is you. Bye, guys. Have a great night.